The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. I'm Dan Tomaszewski with Everything MSP, and I'm glad to have you here today. Security isn't a checkbox, it's a lifestyle. Today, we're talking about what it really takes to build a security program that MSPs can run, sell, and scale. Now, today, our episode, we're going to focus on the Academy Security Program. If you're an MSP that's still treating security like it's a product add-on, this episode is just for you. The most successful MSPs are managing risk as a core service for themselves and for their clients. Security is risk management. It's not a tool list, and your stack matters. But your process, your culture, and owner buy-in matter even more. We're going to break all this down, and we're going to talk about how security is a daily habit, and you can make it a daily habit across your team and your client base. I'm going to bring in a very special guest here today. I have with me, there we go, we've got Rich Richardson with Pax8. Rich, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. It's good to have you here. And you are a speaker, and you're the builder behind the Academy Security Program. You help MSPs go beyond point solutions, and you help them implement operational, measurable security practices. And it's great to have you on the show. We know security is such a critical area for every MSP. And like we queued up today, it needs to be part of that core set, right?
Yes, definitely.
Now, before we really jump in and start getting into the gist of our conversation today, for our audience that, may not have, heard you before or met you before, can you give a little background about yourself and your role there at Pax8?
Sure. With Pax8 Academy, I've been here at Academy coaching for about 2 years. Prior to that, I have been way back. I was several years with military intelligence, sort of got my roots into security, if you will, back in the 90s in that respect. Had my own MSP in the late 90s, early 2000s. I've been a part of MSPs as director of service, all the way from a $6 million MSP up to $1 billion global company that I was in charge of, Managed Services US. So kind of brought myself through the ranks from a small business owner up to a large corporation in this world. Along the way, I was also CISO of one of those MSPs, really in charge of building the security program that we put together there.
Awesome. And, it's always great to have, those on the vendor side that have been in the MSP world, because it really helps, as far as just that real connection, as far as what MSPs do on a daily basis. Because, let's face it, what MSPs do on a daily basis truly is unique, and they are a unique breed, right?
Yes, we are a little bit of everything.
Yeah. It's one of those A to Z, and, so much involved into it. And so, let's kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about today. Some of the biggest takeaways that we're aiming to cover are the real time and resources it takes, what the process is around the tools, ultimately is everything, and making security that lifestyle, both internally and with the clients. And the non-negotiable here is owner buy-in. So with that being said, what I want to do is just kind of jump into some of on the misconception side. So what are some of the top misconceptions that MSPs have around security from your perspective?
I think the biggest one that we see very, very commonly is that the misconception that a security practice is just about deploying tools. And it's not the MSP's fault. It is the world that we live in, that the vendors are out there, they're going to conferences, they're looking at everything from whether it be an advertisement on YouTube, whether it be just a pop-up that says, pick our tool and you're good.
Yeah.
And you can insert tool name here. The part that from an MSP perspective, your owners and your leaders, again, you're going to the conference, you see a piece about a tool and it now is the bright shiny object. You come back and say, we got to have this, we got to put it in. You feel that because of what you were just told, you deploy the tool, everybody's good to go. Well, that's what we're finding is that is the core, but that is not your security program. The tool is the core. The process is what's going to set you apart from everybody else. Without going into a ton of detail on that, it really is. I can use the tool, but what am I doing with it? How am I reporting on it? How am I logging? How do I take that to my client and take the things that I'm living by, the processes and the policies that I've built, take that to my clients so they can be more proactive, that they can manage their risks, that they become defensible just like we are. Another misconception, and it really plays into that same thing, is that once it's implemented, cybersecurity is just set it and forget it. And again, that is not the case in security. A lot of the ways that we've operated as an MSP are very much around that concept. Our goal for 2 decades has been uptime. We are trying to manage your systems. We are trying to make sure that you don't go down. We put a tool in place to measure. We put tools in place to alert. We put tools in place to do various things. And it is truly often set it and forget it. In the case of cybersecurity, the landscape changes. Sometimes week to week, things are different. The threats are different. The threats have become much more sophisticated. We need to constantly be evolving with those threats. And for some of you that have been around for a long time, you think back 10 years ago, and our threat protection, if you will, was a firewall. We cared about the network edge. We did a moat around the castle, and that was it. And as we know, fast forward 10 years, that isn't it today. And what's it going to be like in the next 10 years? And as we bring AI into the mix, there's going to be new things that have come into place. So really, security is not, we have to constantly evolve. You don't just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
And I think the next one and the third is that a security practice will immediately bring new revenue. Again, playing off of that same concept that I'm just going to deploy a tool that I put it into place and we are good to go. Building a true security program is going to take months to put together. The go to market with your client in the way that we coach this is we need to drink our own champagne first or eat our own dog food, depending on if you're positive or,
Yeah.
but we need to deploy and we need to adopt a framework and we need to put our policies and our procedures and we need to be living that lifestyle that you mentioned before we even go to market. Once we are living it and that we breathe it, this is who we are and it defines us. Not only can we go to market with it because we are good at what we do, but we can take that expertise and that confidence, both and from everybody from top to bottom, from the owner down to your level 1 engineer, that can go out and talk about it because you're living it. I know how this feels. I know what this does. I know what it looks like. So when you're talking to your clients, even from a sales perspective, as you're out there and you're selling them risk management and you're selling them defensibility, you know what you're talking about because you're living it. So those would be kind of the top 3 that we come across.
No, those are great. And, when you think about adding something new to your stack, I mean, we all know that what works for us today isn't necessarily what's going to work for us tomorrow and in the day beyond, just because bad actors are continuing to enhance and, stay one step ahead of us from that perspective. But, in like you said, just because you add a tool to your stack, first and foremost, a lot of times we're only scratching the surface of what the true capabilities are. So, we must embrace and we must commit the time to fully deploy and take advantage of all that is part of it. But also too, those vendors are putting an incredible amount of time and energy into enhancing their product and service to be able to stay ahead of bad actors. And we need to stay educated, right? We need to stay on top of, what changes are they making and why are they making them? Otherwise, we're paying for a tool that is evolving, but if we're not evolving along with it, then we're not really gaining the benefits. So
And
kind of critical from that angle.
building a couple of things off that one, coming from the service side of it, there is nothing that drives us, and us I mean by from service leaders all the way down to our engineers, more crazy than my owner just came back from a conference and said, we're going to put this in. And we've never seen it before. We've never touched it. And the owner expects it in 2 weeks. We're going to be up and running. and I literally had an owner that used to love saying, well, it's not that hard. And you're right. It's not that hard, but it's not going to be done tomorrow, boss. And so really, keeping that reality in place for them too, just what you said, we can't just throw this out there. We need to know it inside and out. We need to deploy it correctly. We need to know how to use the tool. I don't want to look like an amateur the first time a ticket comes through. Yeah.
And I think too, just, you mentioned going out to a conference. I think what's critical is, staying connected with your team. If you own or you're a leader within an MSP and you're going to be going to an event, have a sit down with your team and say, what do you see? What are some gaps that you see in our stack? So as I am going out to this event and I'm looking for, different things that are out there, I can, try to identify something to fill that gap. And because then when you do come back and you say, hey guys, this is what I found, you're going to get the buy-in, you're going to get that buy-in, and, it's not going to be like, oh boy, here's another thing that we got to try to throw together because, just to make them happy. It becomes part of the team process. And, as a team, they're part of the decision instead of being forced to comply. And, so I want to jump over to coaching, so why did you build a security coaching program, and what, ultimately what problems were you seeing over and over with MSPs that, you were trying to fill a particular gap from that angle?
So I think the biggest reason is because they asked for it, they being our partners. And where that really came, I think for me anyway, came front and center was being on stage at various speaking opportunities where we talked about cybersecurity and having partners come up and probably the biggest thing that I remember so many saying, wow, thanks for laying that out because we thought that this would take a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, and we're ready to go. Thank you for laying out everything that it's going to take. Now, how do we do it? How can we, where do I even start? Do I need, don't I need a CISSP? Don't I need experts? How am I going to hire that? I'm a small MSP. How am I a good fit? How do I know if I'm a good fit? And really then laying out our coaching program based upon that feedback that we got from speaking on stage, and putting into place. And then we actually did an alpha program with a few partners who gave us a lot of feedback along the way to really put together what we think is a really solid approach.
Yeah, and there is a lot involved, and let's face it, most that are implementing, they're also part of the front line. They're working tickets, they're out in the field, and unless obviously in a perfect world, you might have somebody in a technical role that's available to be able to put those type of implementations into place, and that's all they do. Wishful thinking, but usually it's someone in a technical role that might be on the help desk, or they're a field technician, and they're fitting it in, where they have time. So, if I'm thinking about building a full-fledged security program, what would it actually entail? From people and the process, technology, the service catalog, SLAs, reporting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What does all that entail?
It's a great question, and everybody's going to be slightly different. And so from a coaching perspective, one of the very first things that we preach is, and you touched on this already, owner buy-in. It starts at the top. Again, kind of the things that we've talked about already, that this is not a set and forget. This is not just another bright, shiny object. We need to be committed. And it starts with the owner. And if the owner shows that level of commitment in whether it be financial investment, resource investment, the ability, as you touched on, the ability of the owner to listen to the team on the things that we need to really successfully put this together. Don't just do the minimum. We may have some tools. What we need to do is what's right, and follow this through all the way to conclusion. Don't give up 1 month, 2 months, 3 months into this. So knowing ahead of time what it's going to take, that is huge. And we really,
Yeah.
when we start the coaching program, the first few weeks of coaching is really around that, is identifying what it's going to take for resources, the time commitment, both in the actual time invested as well as our calendar time. And how long is it going to be, a year before I'm actually ready to go to market, kind of thing. Knowing your clients, what is the industries that you're serving and that they're serving, which is going to align you with the correct framework to adopt for yourself. Again, our coaching is that you are going to take and you're going to implement a security framework in-house for yourself that is going to work and take out to your clients. So identifying your clients and what the biggest need of them is going to be, as far as whether that you have clients that serve government, they're going to need themselves to follow CMMC. We have HIPAA, we have PCI, that our security frameworks are going to play very tightly in with those compliance, regulatory compliance things. So identifying your clients, identifying the framework to adopt. The heavy lift is actually implementing that framework. A lot of times what we're recommending, we're seeing that is the right thing, is adopting CIS as a framework internally first, because we can very easily take and build out from our CIS framework implementation and take it to anything else that we need to. If we have clients that it looks like NIST is the right thing to follow, if we need to implement and follow PCI or HIPAA, we can do that very closely if we've already put our CIS controls into place.
Yeah.
The heavy lift is the fact that there are 153 safeguards within CIS, and every one of those has a policy that goes along with it. Writing the policy, writing a process that we have documented on. That's our big lift. In tandem with developing that, and there's your engineer side, and those are your folks doing that, we are working with process, your internal process. How do you handle tickets? How are you set up to handle alerts? How are you set up to handle anything that comes in? Do you have processes in place that are very, if you will, very strict? Because security, again, is not a printer jam. This can have very serious consequences. We need to follow the process that we lay out. Having our job descriptions, having our roles, our responsibilities, identifying that. And as you alluded to, oftentimes, I'm not going to start out with a dedicated security team. They're going to be sharing resources with the help desk team or some of your field engineers. Building all of this internally is our first step. So we're getting all of our processes in place on how we handle tickets, how we handle alerts. We're getting our staffing in place. We're getting our framework in place. From there, then we're going to look at our go-to-market. How do we set up our agreements? What is it that we're offering? How are we going to sell that? How are we going to present that? Again, we are going from an uptime to a risk management philosophy or approach, and really selling our clients on this is what you need. And in today's world, insurance companies are demanding much, much more from your clients. Well, we want to make sure that they have policies in place, that they have processes in place so that they can be more proactive. And that they are following them and become defensible, because if they have an incident and the insurance company says, show me these things that you said you do, they can do it. They aren't just relying on us as the MSP to do it. And then working on profitability, working on what is my pricing going to be? How do I put this out there as a value-added service? Am I doing, and the very successful MSPs are actually adding all of the compliance pieces as part of their managed services offering. There are a lot of other things that we can do as a service. We can do tabletop exercises as a service. That is a really kind of an exciting and fun thing that as clients themselves, and it isn't just cybersecurity for that. It could be anything to do with natural disasters, anything that might affect them and their business. Sitting down and working through a tabletop with them is going to help build stickiness, trust, and confidence that we really know what we're doing as the MSP. So all of that, you're looking at several months of time to put that together.
Absolutely. And I'm going to make one quick point. I know we're not going to talk, we don't necessarily have the time to talk about tabletop exercises, but I cannot, say enough about how critical tabletop exercises are in our business. It's, doing those with our clients, helping them to see everything that's involved and who is responsible. It's just invaluable. And I don't know if you want to add, any more to that, but we talk a lot about it, but if you're not doing them, start today.
And if you've never done them,
So
tabletop exercises is Dungeons and Dragons for engineers. It is
yeah,
this is
yeah,
a thing that engineers love doing because you're sitting literally at the table thinking up. You have a scenario and you have a dungeon master that's injecting surprises into the mix. They're actually a lot of fun and they're very, very valuable. And a little plug,
yeah.
we are going to be doing instructor-led courses through Academy on tabletop exercises with yours truly being one of the teachers there. So I'd love to have anybody
Awesome.
join.
That's very cool. So let's talk about culture. I mean, we do know that culture creates alignment so everybody can, move forward in the same direction. Let's get a little more granular from a cultural
Mhm.
perspective. What does security as a lifestyle look like, from a day-to-day perspective for an MSP with client and their clients?
Great question, and I want to start by saying I'm so encouraged with the people that I talk to and the partners that we have, and the shift that I'm seeing from a hiring perspective away from technical skills to a culture fit. Because I feel like that I can teach technical, I can't teach that culture fit to somebody, and it is so
Yeah,
encouraging to see more and more MSPs hiring that way. So from a culture fit, and from my I'm looking for folks that are curious, tenacious. Um, Ticket crunchers have a place, and ticket crunchers are outstanding because they are the solid foundation of our MSP. That that's all they do all day is they crank tickets, they close them, they do a fantastic job. From a culture perspective, on the security side, I'm also looking for those folks that just want to dig a little deeper. They want to make sure that they have caught anything that might be there. They want to know the root cause. They want to understand completely why this happened. Um, Being the person that doesn't take a shortcut, being the person that doesn't just close the ticket to move on to the next ticket. Um, those are really key factors in my opinion in security, and having the right folks there for that. People that aren't going to just give up on a problem, aren't going to pass on it, aren't going to just kick the ticket as the can, if you will, down the road. They are going to keep digging and digging until they find it. um, life's a lifestyle. This is a question that I ask a lot of my partners in security coaching at the beginning of our call each week. What have you done this week to live security as a lifestyle? Because it truly should be that I am paying attention to what's going on out in the world. Hey, I just heard about this new threat that just came out, a new vulnerability that we heard about, something that my engineers even are being proactive, and they heard about this that might affect 15% of our clients, and we're letting them know ahead of time that there was a vulnerability in something that we know that they're running. um, that lifestyle becomes, again, not I am not just fixing your printer issue, I'm not just monitoring your server. I am alert, I've got my head on a swivel, I am paying attention to what's going on, that nothing is coming through here without me seeing it, that we are truly paying attention. And something that we alluded to earlier, the products that we're using, the tools that we're using, knowing ahead of time, if you will, or in real time, you know what, this tool was the best tool 2 years ago to fill this gap. You know what, there's some better ones on the market today, and here's what, and
yeah.
paying attention and knowing that evolution of this market, this industry, and security as a whole, being able to stay on top of that and swivel and say, you know what, that tool has done an awesome job for us for the last 2 years, but we're going to shift over here because this is a better one. um, that
Okay.
is really the kind of the base of that security lifestyle.
That's great. And, I want to dig a little bit deeper into the Academy Security Program.
Mhm.
And, how do we know, or how does an MSP know that it's a good fit for them, that the program is a good fit, as far as stages of maturity, leadership commitment, resource readiness? How do we answer those questions if, from that angle?
It's a great question. Some of it will help by doing, we have surveys that we can do that if you answer, we can help guide that way. In general, from a size perspective, we're finding that at least 8 to 10 employees. If you get much smaller than that, you're having a hard time dedicating the resource time that you need to really put this into place and to keep it
Yeah.
current. Revenue probably along the same lines of being somewhere in that 2 to 3 million and above as far as revenue goes. Now that doesn't mean that that eliminates other folks. That's the sweet spot as far as knowing that I'm ready. But in addition to that, do you have tight processes? Are you following your processes? Because if you don't, we need to work on that first before we even get into security. Because without that, your security is going to be as loose as all of the rest of your things are. So we need to make sure that the processes are tight. Back to the owner buy-in. Is the owner truly, truly committed to this? As we sit down and talk about the time and the effort that it's going to take to put into place, we are asking those owners, you've bought into the concept, but have you bought into the commitment? And if the answer is no, then it's not yet the right time for you. So along with being committed, again, we need that owner that himself, him or herself, are also going to be able to pivot in the sense of this is going to change over the course of whether it be months or years and how we're approaching it and what we're doing. I touched on a little bit earlier, as AI comes into play, we don't yet know all of the things around AI that it's going to affect security. Being able to recognize if I am going down a wrong path and I need to turn and I need to pivot and I need to go this way, are you as an owner able and capable of doing that? Or are you that person that is just going to keep, going along on that same path that you initially laid out? Those are kinds of the questions I think that really help an owner and a company know that, you know what, we really are ready for this.
Yeah. So any, as we're working to wrap things up here, any final words in regards to the Academy Security Program that you'd like to share with our audience?
It's awesome. um, and just being honest,
Yeah.
it is a big and it is very in depth,
Yeah.
and it is not a quick endeavor. Knowing that coming in is key, but also knowing that we are with you every step of the way. We are going to help you with the policies. We're going to help you with your processes, the templates, the timing, the planning, all of that. We're there to be your partner in this.
And that's so critical because, like you said, when you've made that commitment and you've decided that this is going to be part of the lifestyle, your IT lifestyle, it really is a commitment, but it's going to take your business, your security practice to the next level. It's going to allow you to, better run the operations. It's going to help with that operational maturity. It's going to help you
Mhm.
sell it. It's going to help you scale your business.
For
And
sure.
as with anything, when you can commit to it, the fruits of that labor, you will see that with that commitment.
I'll end this with 4 quick questions to add that I love this. Asking
And
yourself as the
so, as
owner.
special
Oh,
offer, oh, go ahead, jump right in.
oh,
Yeah.
um, asking yourself 4 questions. What will happen if I do this? What will happen if I don't do this? What won't happen if I do this? And what won't happen if I don't do this? I think really asking yourself and really kind of laying that out. One of the big things for me is if you don't do this, you risk losing your business or affecting other businesses due to the landscape of the world today. If you do it, you minimize that risk, and to me that is so important today.
As we talk about on calls with MSPs, as we look to, try to look past the commodity aspects of MSPs and, the view that some might have, this truly sets you apart from your competition.
It does. And that's what we're finding with the partners that are going through it already. And that's the feedback that we're getting is we've opened so many doors. We're building trust with all of our clients. We're getting more commitment from them. We're able to increase our rates because of the value add. We're getting great feedback from the partners we have right now in that respect. That's
awesome. And, so as we're wrapping things up here, you guys do have a special offer for our listeners. For 5 of our first respondents, there's an opportunity to receive a free 1-hour coaching session with Rich to take a deeper dive into what it really takes to implement a security practice. And in the show notes and the comments, we will include details on how you can reach out to the Pax8 Academy. Again, this is going to be for the first 5 that respond. So very important. Anything additional you want to say about this special offer?
Nope. Sign up. Be one of the first 5.
There you go. So as we work to land this plane, there is so much, that you can participate in and take advantage of to take your business to the next level. And it takes that commitment, that buy-in. And Rich, I want to thank you so much for your time and sharing that framework with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
It's awesome. And, and if this has helped you, please be sure to share this with any of your MSP colleagues that are ready to level up their security. Be sure to subscribe to the Stack. We want to continue to keep you educated. Learn, share, grow is what we're all about. And with that being said, everyone, I want to thank you for being here. Until next time, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you again, Rich.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.